Hello everyone, now we begin with something you almost definitely didn't expect to hear today. A billionaire in a tailored suit, worth more than your car, by the way, is absolutely losing it over a cup of lukewarm coffee in a quiet, hometown cafe. You can smell the tension in the air, see the tremble in the waitress's hand, and hear the hush that falls as every fork freezes halfway to every open mouth. The man is yelling, not just annoyed, but volcanic, and no one is stepping in. But one sentence is about to change everything. You probably won't survive this kind of secondhand embarrassment without your blood pressure spiking, so brace yourself. Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, post your city and local time in the comments. I love seeing where this story travels. Now, relax, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get into today's story. It starts at 8:13 a.m. in a sleepy Colorado town that boasts more pine trees than traffic lights. A modest cafe tucked into the corner of Main and Harlem is already half full. Locals sip their coffee and nod to each other in that small-town way, until a black Mercedes Maybach glides into the parking lot like a shark cutting through water. He steps out. Dean Salter. Net worth, $3.1 billion. Founder of a high-stakes investment firm. Famous for eliminating competitors with a smile and a handshake. Clean shave, Rolex, crisp navy blazer. He doesn't fit here, and he doesn't care. He walks in like he owns the place, snapping fingers before his shoes even cross the threshold. There's a trace of contempt in his glance, like the room offends him. He chooses a table by the window, not because it's comfortable, but because it's visible. Coffee. Hot. And quickly, he says, without a please. Enter, Jamie. Mid-20s. Brown ponytail, tired eyes, steady hands, until now. She greets him with a polite nod, not fazed, but not fawning. She's already clocked him for what he is. She's seen worse. Minutes later, she sets down the coffee. The moment the cup touches the table, it begins. What is this? Dean barks, as though she's handed him poison. Jamie blinks. Your coffee, sir. Just how you asked. He sips. Then scoffs. This tastes like it was scraped off a sidewalk in Saigon. The entire cafe stops. A spoon clinks to the floor. Someone coughs, loudly, on purpose. Jamie doesn't react, not yet. Dean's voice rises, theatrical now. Do you know who I am? Classic line. Everyone holds their breath. Jamie gently folds her hands in front of her apron. I do not, sir, she says. Well, maybe if you left this two-bit shack, you'd understand the real world. Maybe if you had ever left your town, taken a risk, you'd know how to serve someone who, sir, Jamie says quietly, interrupting the billionaire mid-bluster. My last job was driving armored trucks through Fallujah. So, yes, I've left town. Boom, silence. A crushing, beautiful silence. Dean's mouth opens, but no sound follows. His brain short-circuits in the face of something he can't bully, reality. There's a moment, a visible shift. You could hear the room exhale. Someone in the back mutters damn under their breath. An older couple nods solemnly, recognizing the word Fallujah not from a map, but from memories. Jamie doesn't gloat. She doesn't smirk. She simply turns and walks back behind the counter, where she calmly refills the sugar packets. Dean Salter, multi-billionaire, the man who once made a senator cry during a negotiation, doesn't touch his coffee again. He leaves 20 minutes later without another word, the leather soles of his shoes scuffing shame across the linoleum. You might think that's the whole story. Rich man embarrassed, waitress wins, the end. But no, not even close, because what Jamie said wasn't just a mic drop. It was a clue. A breadcrumb. And what came next would unravel more than a morning tantrum. It would expose a hidden debt, a stolen past, and a slow-moving justice that had been waiting years to surface. But back in that moment, what mattered most wasn't what Dean did next. It was how everyone else looked at Jamie now. Not with pity. Not even with admiration. With respect. The kind that's earned in sand, sweat, and silence. And Dean. He would carry that moment longer than he'd admit. See, when you're used to being the loudest man in every room. Sometimes the most devastating blow is delivered in a whisper. Dean Salter didn't drive away right away. He sat in that luxury car for a good 15 minutes. The engine off, the world muffled around him, as if the silence inside the car could buffer him from what had just happened. You could almost picture the scene from the sidewalk, a man with everything, suddenly looking like he had nothing. No one dared approach. He eventually drove off, but not to a meeting or to catch a flight. No, he went straight to his hotel, where he shut the curtains and ordered nothing. For the first time in years, Dean Salter didn't have an appetite. Back at the café, Jamie didn't say much either. She took a 10-minute break behind the building, just her and a pack of stale pretzels. She wasn't rattled. She had learned long ago how to handle louder men in far more dangerous places, but there was a gravity to what had just happened. Not because she embarrassed a billionaire. No. Because she had felt it. That shift in the air. That moment where the past, for a flicker of a second, had bled into the present. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The rest of her shift passed without drama. The regulars left a few extra dollars in the tip jar. Her manager gave her a nod, the kind that says I saw, and I get it. And then, just before the lunch rush, Jamie disappeared into the back, checked her phone, and saw it, her face. Online. Already, someone had filmed it. A shaky, vertical video, the billionaire shouting, the moment she spoke, the sudden hush, the exit. 83 seconds long. And climbing. 10,000 views. 50. 100. The comments were rolling in, she's a legend. Fallujah. She's seen more than that suit ever will. Protect this woman at all costs. Jamie exhaled, put the phone face down, and tried not to let it shake her. Because what most people didn't know, what even Dean Salter didn't know, was that she hadn't said that line to be clever. It wasn't meant to impress anyone. It came from somewhere deeper. From a promise, but back to Dean. See, for a man like him, image is everything. Control is currency. And being publicly shamed by a waitress? That kind of thing doesn't just sting, it threatens the entire architecture of ego he spent decades building. He tried, briefly, to spin it. Called his PR team. Threatened a few calls. Demanded the video be taken down. Sir, his assistant said gently, it's viral. And the tone online is not in your favor. He hung up, something in him knew, this wasn't just a PR disaster. It was a crack in the armor. And what made it worse was the look in her eyes when she said it, not angry, not smug, but steady. Focused. The way a person looks when they've already survived worse. That night, Dean couldn't sleep. He scrolled for hours, reading every comment, replaying the clip. He was seeing himself through strangers' eyes for the first time in years. A man unhinged. A bully. A fool. And then, in a quiet thread buried under layers of noise, he saw something else, a comment. Simple. From a man named Marcus C. I served with a woman named Jamie in 2009. If that's her. She saved my life in Mosul. Dean stared, he clicked the name. Profile locked. Just a blurred photo of a man in uniform. Nothing more, but that sentence wouldn't let go. He shut the laptop. 2 days later, he returned to the café, no Mercedes this time. He parked a block away, walked in with a baseball cap pulled low and no entourage. The place was half full. Jamie wasn't on shift yet. The same manager recognized him instantly. "We're full," he said firmly, before Dean could speak. "I'm not here for service," Dean replied. "I'd just like to speak with her. If she's okay with that." The manager squinted. "Wait here." Minutes passed. Then Jamie emerged from the kitchen, apron still tied. Her eyes met Dean's. No surprise. No warmth either. Just that same calm, assessing look. "I'll make it quick," Dean said. She nodded, arms folded. "Talk." And then, something happened that Dean wasn't known for. He hesitated. He actually looked human. "I'm sorry," he said. "Not just for yelling. For everything I assumed." She didn't flinch. "You yelled at me because your coffee wasn't hot enough. And when I pushed back, your power vanished. That's not just ego. That's fear." Dean blinked. Jamie continued, "You live at the top, but one word from someone below you knocked you down. You're not angry at me. You're scared of what that means." There it was. The sentence that hit harder than the last one, and then, without raising her voice or making a scene, she asked one simple question: "Why does the word Fallujah rattle you so much?" Dean stiffened. "You recognized it," she said. "Most people don't. But you did. That's why you froze." He didn't deny it. He looked at her, and this time, the look wasn't dismissive, it was haunted. "My brother served there," he said. "2nd Battalion, Marines. Never came back." And for a moment, the world got quiet again. Jamie's voice softened. "Then you should know better than anyone what people carry." Dean nodded, slowly. "I forgot. Or maybe I buried it. Either way. You reminded me." He turned to leave, but paused at the door. "Jamie. Thank you." And then he was gone. Outside, the wind moved through the pine trees like it had been listening all along. Jamie stood still for a long moment after Dean left. She wasn't expecting him to return, much less with an apology. But when he spoke about his brother, something shifted inside her too. Not pity. Not forgiveness, not yet. Just understanding. Because buried beneath Dean's polished veneer and towering arrogance was a grief that had never healed. And she knew that kind of grief. It had a particular shape. It always sat crooked inside the chest, like a medal you didn't ask to earn. Later that night, Jamie walked home. The sky over Colorado was ink black, scattered with stars you could actually see. It was peaceful in a way that felt earned. Her neighborhood was modest, postage stamp lawns, wind chimes, and front porches cluttered with boots and bikes. She lived alone in a small duplex with a cracked driveway and a stubborn porch light that only flickered on half the time. Inside, Jamie opened a drawer she hadn't touched in a while. Pulled out a box with 2 faded dog tags, a laminated ID badge, and a folded-up letter that still smelled faintly of desert air. She sat at the kitchen table, the hum of the fridge keeping time, and read the letter again. It was from Marcus Carraway. Her gunner. Her friend. The man she dragged bleeding through an alley in Mosul in 2009 while under sniper fire. They hadn't spoken in years, not since he got out, moved to Oregon, started a family. Tried to forget, she remembered the last time they'd talked. He'd told her, "One day, the world's gonna forget what we did over there. But you'll never forget who you became because of it." He was right, That single comment he left on the video had opened a door Jamie thought she'd bolted shut. The video itself had slowed by now, yes, it was still circulating, still gaining admiration, but to Jamie, the aftermath was more complicated than a flurry of online validation, because the truth is, she hadn't always been this composed. Years ago, fresh out of service, Jamie was a firecracker with a short fuse and a chip on both shoulders. She drank too much, yelled too quickly, and trusted nobody. The structure of military life had given her purpose, but civilian life stripped that away and didn't offer much in return. She bounced between jobs, failed out of therapy twice, and went nearly a year without making eye contact with anyone for longer than 3 seconds. What changed her wasn't therapy or medication or even time. It was a single moment, a different café, a different town. Years ago, she was working as a dishwasher, invisible and unbothered, when a man came in wearing a cap with the 101st Airborne insignia. He was quiet. Sat alone. Ate slowly. Left a $20 tip on an $8 meal. Jamie followed him out and said just 2 words, Airborne 2. He turned, studied her, and then smiled like he'd found something he didn't know he'd lost. That man, whose name she never caught, said something then that rewired the way she saw herself. Don't just carry what you did. Share it. Quietly. It helps more people than you think. It stuck. Changed her. Made her understand that her past wasn't just a burden. It was a compass. That's when she stopped hiding her history and started folding it into her life, not to brag, not to shame, but to steady herself and others. That's what made her voice steady when Dean Salter tried to crush her with his money and noise. She wasn't trying to win. She was trying to anchor herself, and maybe show someone else how to do the same. And Marcus? When he saw the video, he knew, he hadn't contacted her in years, not because of anger or distance, but guilt. He had promised to stay in touch, but after his 3rd surgery, after the night terrors started, he had pulled away from everyone connected to that world, but seeing Jamie hold her ground, calm and collected, flipped a switch in him, so he called. They spoke for an hour. Then 2. They laughed about their squad's ridiculous radio code names. They talked about the one guy who always snuck Pop-Tarts into patrol gear. And they cried, especially when Jamie told him that she'd kept the letter all this time. He asked her if she ever missed it, the structure, the clarity, the cause. She said no. Not exactly. But she missed the honesty. The way nothing fake could survive over there. And now, weirdly, she was finding that same clarity in a coffee shop in Colorado. Meanwhile, in the quiet upper floors of a high-rise hotel, Dean Salter wasn't sleeping either. The moment he told Jamie about his brother, something inside him unlocked. The next morning, he called a number he hadn't dialed in years, his mother's. She answered, weary but warm. Dean, she said. I didn't think you remembered this number. I do, he said. I've been thinking about Charlie. Silence. Then a sigh. He'd be 41 next month. Dean hadn't spoken his brother's name aloud in nearly a decade. Not since the funeral. Not since he threw himself into the world of mergers and acquisitions like a man on fire, trying to build a fortress of wealth so tall it could shield him from grief. Now, that fortress had a crack. And Dean realized he didn't hate Jamie for embarrassing him. He was grateful. Because she had reminded him, through nothing but presence, that humanity can't be bought, and neither can dignity. That night, Dean sat down and opened a document titled Charlie Salter Memorial Fund. He began typing. Plans for scholarships. Vocational training for veterans. Mental health support. A name Jamie would see soon. Listed as founding board advisor, and yes, he included Marcus too, tracked him down, offered him a spot, no strings, because when one sentence opens a scar, it also opens a door. Jamie didn't need thanks. But she was about to receive something bigger than applause. She was about to see what her restraint had planted, a seed of reckoning in the heart of a man who had forgotten how to be small, and how to be real. The first time Jamie heard about the memorial fund, she was sweeping up the café at closing. A manila envelope had arrived, unmarked except for her name in clean, square handwriting. Inside, a letter. Not typed, not cold. Handwritten, with crossed-out words and smudges from someone not used to slowing down enough to write things that mattered. It was from Dean. He explained the foundation. Not in grandiose terms or PR buzzwords. He talked about Charlie. About the guilt of not enlisting himself, of watching his younger brother go off to war while he chased spreadsheets and seat upgrades. About the time he spent dodging the grief that now sat in his throat every morning. And he thanked her, not just for humbling him, but for dragging him, in public no less, into a moment of brutal honesty. At the end, there was a note, "We'd be honored to have you on the board, if you'll have us." Jamie stared at the letter long after the floors were clean. Not because she was flattered, she wasn't the flattered type, but because it was real. It had the uneven edges of something heartfelt. And in a world of noise and spin, that was rare. She didn't say yes right away. In fact, she didn't reply for 2 weeks. During that time, she kept working her shifts. Kept her head down. But something had changed in the way people looked at her. One day, a young woman came in, nervously clutching her coffee like a shield. She sat in Jamie's section and didn't speak for a full 5 minutes. When she did, it was just one question: "Were you really in Fallujah?" Jamie didn't smile. Didn't perform. She just nodded. The woman exhaled. "My dad was there too. He doesn't talk about it. Ever. But I saw that video, and I thought maybe. I don't know, maybe I could come talk to someone who gets it." Jamie slid into the booth across from her. Listened. And for the next hour, the café became a tiny sanctuary. Not a battlefield, not a stage. Just a place where two people sat across from each other and shared the weight of what silence leaves behind. That kept happening, week after week. Someone new would recognize her. Not always because of the viral clip. Sometimes it was just a pin on her apron. Or the way she listened. Or how she never asked for details but always seemed to understand the parts people didn't say out loud. And slowly, Jamie realized something important: she didn't have to wear a uniform to serve. Didn't need to be in combat boots to fight. She was already in the middle of a mission. And the terrain just looked different now, so she wrote Dean back. Not a long letter. Just 4 lines. Charlie would have liked this. "I'm in. But only if Marcus is too. Let's build it right." Dean responded within a day. "He's already on board. Full salary, no expectations, he just wants to help." Jamie called Marcus. He sounded lighter than she remembered. "I can't believe it," he said. All it took was one sentence, "Huh." Jamie chuckled. It's never just one. But that's the one they noticed. And so the Charlie Salter Memorial Fund began. It started small. A pilot program in 3 cities, including Jamie's. They focused on transition services, real ones, not just pamphlets and red tape. Peer-led counseling. Employment prep that didn't insult experience. Safe spaces where veterans didn't have to translate their trauma into civilian language just to be heard. Jamie didn't want a fancy office. She kept working part-time at the café. Said it kept her sharp. Dean offered to buy her a house. She declined. He tried to give her a new car. She told him to donate it to a single mom on the waitlist instead. "You're hard to impress," Dean said once, half joking. Jamie looked at him and replied, "You were a billionaire. Then you listened. That impressed me more." Their relationship wasn't a friendship, not exactly. It was more like a truce between two veterans of different wars, his internal, hers external. But it worked. Jamie didn't forget what he did. She didn't suddenly become warm toward him. But she respected the pivot. And that mattered more than apologies. In one of the first public panels for the foundation, Jamie told a story. It wasn't dramatic, no firefight, no medals. Just a moment. "We were in Iraq," she said. "It was 120 degrees, no shade, middle of a patrol. We passed a little girl selling bottles of water that were already warm. Most of the squad moved on. But one of our guys, Daniels," he stopped. "Gave her a half-pack of crackers. She smiled like it was gold. That moment, it reminded us we weren't just machines. We were still capable of kindness." She paused. "That's what this is. Giving people moments to remember they're human." The crowd didn't cheer. They sat still. Quiet. Moved. And Jamie liked it that way. Not long after, a new recruit in one of the foundation's programs handed her a note, "Your story helped me cancel my plan. I had it all mapped out. But I heard you speak, and I realized I wasn't broken, I was just unspoken." Jamie folded it, placed it in the same box as Marcus's letter and her old dog tags. Because these were the medals that mattered now, and Dean, he kept showing up. Not perfectly. Not heroically. But consistently. He sat in back rows at events. He signed checks without wanting his name on everything. He even hired a counselor for himself, quietly, without announcement. One time, Jamie walked past his office and saw a framed photo of a young Marine with crooked teeth and proud eyes. "Charlie?" she asked. Dean nodded. "He'd have loved you." Jamie looked at the photo, then at Dean. "Then maybe you're doing something right." That was all the validation he needed. A year after the day that changed everything, Jamie found herself standing at a wooden podium beneath a white tent in the middle of a field outside Denver. It was the foundation's first annual gathering. Veterans, families, counselors, supporters, they were all there, seated in rows on folding chairs that sank slightly into the soft grass. Overhead, the sun played hide-and-seek behind a parade of drifting clouds, and a breeze carried the scent of fresh-cut lawn and springtime hope. She didn't have a script. She never did. "Hello," she began, her voice steady, clear. "Most of you know me as the woman who told off a billionaire with just a few words and a 1,000-yard stare. That's not inaccurate. But I'm not here today to rehash that moment. I want to talk about what happens after." The crowd leaned in. "See, in the military, there's a saying, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your level of training. It's not about heroics. It's about muscle memory, about what you build when no one's watching. That's what this foundation is. That's what this team is." She looked out across the faces, some hardened, some softened, all listening. "We've lost people," she said. "Not just to war, but to silence. To shame. To systems that don't know how to hear them. And we're here today not because of one viral moment, but because enough people decided to stay after the cameras stopped rolling." She paused. "I've seen lives change this year. Not in fireworks. In quiet ways. A father who picked up his daughter from school for the first time in 2 years. A woman who stopped sleeping in her truck because we got her into transitional housing. A Marine who admitted, out loud, that he was scared. That's courage. That's service. And that's why we're here." Scattered applause. No standing ovation. Just honest, human approval. The kind that sticks. Later, Jamie stepped off the stage and rejoined the crowd. She hugged Marcus, who was smiling more often these days. His limp had eased since surgery, and he wore a crisp polo shirt and jeans like he finally believed he belonged in this version of life. "You nailed it," he said, nudging her. "Though I missed your usual sarcasm." Jamie smirked. Didn't want to scare the donors. Nearby, Dean stood watching. He hadn't spoken today. He rarely did at these events anymore. He preferred to let the ones with scars and stories lead. He caught Jamie's eye and nodded. She nodded back. It was enough. Later that week, a reporter called Jamie for an interview. Wanted to turn the story into a podcast series. Asked if she could describe what made that moment with Dean, the one that started it all, so powerful. Jamie didn't hesitate. "It wasn't just what I said," she told them. "It was what I didn't say. I didn't escalate. I didn't shame. I just held my ground. Because deep down, I knew the uniform had already taught me how to stand up to any kind of noise. You learn not to flinch." The reporter asked if she ever wished it hadn't gone viral. Jamie considered that. "There are days I wish I had stayed anonymous," she admitted. "But then I get a letter from a vet who finally asked for help. Or from a family who stopped assuming their son was just moody and started learning about PTSD. That makes the noise worth it." The reporter asked if she considered herself a hero. Jamie laughed. "No. I'm not a hero. I'm a waitress with a spine. A vet who remembers. That's all." A month later, Jamie was on a panel in D.C. when a young man stood during Q&A. Nervous, fidgeting, holding a crumpled piece of paper. I used to be kind of like that guy in the video," he said. "Thought money meant worth. That control meant strength. But after I saw you speak, I started volunteering. I'm still learning. But thank you for reminding me what real strength looks like." Jamie walked off the stage that day and didn't need to say anything. The lesson had landed. The world had tried to reduce her to a soundbite, a meme, a viral sensation. But what lasted wasn't the clip, it was the ripple. A waitress, a vet, a voice that didn't crack in the face of power. That was what people remembered. That's what they built on, and Dean, he never stopped growing. Quietly. Consistently. The foundation expanded to 5 more cities. They launched a mobile clinic unit. He showed up at town halls. Asked questions instead of giving speeches. And on the 2nd anniversary of Charlie's death, he brought a small stone plaque to the café. It read, "In honor of quiet courage, and those who carry it." Jamie didn't say anything. Just pointed to a spot on the wall. They hung it there together, and the café? It never went back to normal. It became something better. Vets began gathering there unofficially on Sunday mornings. No fanfare. No flags. Just stories. Advice. Listening. One kid, barely 19, asked Jamie if she ever missed the old version of her life. She replied, "Sometimes. But this one's better. This one matters in ways the old one never did." Then she handed him a cup of coffee, black, no sugar, and said, "Now drink up. We're not done building. So, if you're still here, still breathing in the echoes of this story, take a slow breath with me. Feel the weight of silence between sentences. Let it settle. Because stories like this one, they don't fade when the screen goes dark. They linger. In your chest. In your thoughts. In the way you walk into a room tomorrow and notice someone standing alone and choose to speak first. you've now met a woman who didn't need armor to be strong. Who didn't need medals to matter. Who stood in the middle of a storm, not shouting, not fighting, just holding steady. And because she did, the ground shifted. Not for everyone, maybe. But for enough, we often forget the quiet ones. The ones who listen before they speak. The ones who walk away from applause and toward the work. But they're the ones who hold the world together. So tonight, wherever you are, on a couch, in a car, halfway through your third night shift, know this: you don't need to go viral to matter. You don't need wealth to move people. Sometimes, the most powerful change begins with one calm voice, in one unexpected place, saying just one sentence that lands like truth. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. If you felt something, anything, take a moment to pass that feeling forward. Check in on someone. Share the story. Let the ripple continue. Now, breathe again. Let your shoulders drop. You've earned your rest.